Hey family, how are you all doing? I hope that you are all doing well. Today I want to share with you how I season my different kind of seafood and how I fry them to perfection. If you are someone that is struggling to season your fish or your seafood properly, or when you fry your fishes or your seafood, it always comes out kind of broken or torn, then this video is for you. So please stay tuned and let's get started. So I am going to be frying some redfish, some salmon fillets, and the salmon fillets I'll just explain to you. So basically when I go to the shop, I actually buy like the salmon fillets that they've just left out, so not the actual ones that they are selling. These ones are really cheap. It's like £1 for one, and I like it because I just like it. So I'm just cleaning the fish with some water and some lemon just to take out that kind of fishy smell, if you may, just to get a bit of the smell out of the fish. So that is what I am doing. You can also use some vinegar if that's what you prefer. So once I finish cleaning it, I'll just be laying them on some paper towel just to get the moisture out of the fish. I don't want it to be wet. I want it to be dry so it can take the seasonings properly. And then I'll be going on to wash my anchovies. I love this anchovies. It's just, it gets really crunchy after you fry it. And I've also got some prawns. I'm just going to be rinsing these and washing these also with some lemon, and then I'll be going ahead to cutting off the head of the prawns because I don't like it. Some people leave the head on, but it freaks me out. Okay, so what I'll be doing is I will be cutting off the it's not fins, what you call them long things, the legs, whatever they're called. I'm just going to be cutting that off, and then I'll be cutting the head off as well. And people use the head to sort of dry it and then put it in the oven to kind of make like a crayfish powder, but I am not too fussed, so I will be throwing that out. Okay, so this is what I mean. I'll just be cutting off those long legs and all the bits and bobs that I don't like, and then I'll cut off the heads as well, but I'm going to be leaving everything else on it and just give it a thorough nice rinse. Okay, so now I have cleaned every item that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be seasoning them separately. So I'm going to be seasoning the anchovies and the salmon separately, and I'm doing this because it takes salt very well, so it only needs a little bit of salt, otherwise it will just be too salty. So I will be seasoning the red fish separately and then the other separately. What I'm doing with this is I'm just patting everything dry. Like I mentioned before, I don't want it to be wet. I want the seasoning to be directly on the seafood and not a liquid sort of seasoning on there. Okay, so please do make sure that you pat dry all the seafood before you fry it, and also this will help stop the splattering. Okay, so I'm going to be using some seasoning cube, which is a shrimp seasoning cube, on my red fish. I'll also be adding some black pepper, some fennel seed, some all-purpose seasoning. You can use as much as little black pepper or any other seasoning as you want. Also some garlic granules. I will be listing everything in the description box below, so please do check that out. I won't be using any salt because the seasoning will just get too salty, because the seasoning cube, the shrimp seasoning cube, has a lot of salt in it, and the all-purpose seasoning has a lot of salt in it as well. Just to remind you that fish in general, seafood in general, takes seasoning very well. So if you use too much salt, unlike chicken and other proteins, if you use too much salt on fish, it is going to be very salty. So be aware of that. And now I'm just going to season my prawns and the anchovies and salmon. I am using two separate bowls because The prawns also don't like a lot of salt, so I don't want to use too much salt. That is why I am separating these two, okay? Like I mentioned before, I will list everything in the description box below, so please check out and see which seasonings I used for what, okay? So after I've added all my seasoning, I'm just going to give everything a nice quick mix. You can wear gloves for this, but I've washed my hands and I don't mind, but use gloves if that's what you prefer. But just make sure that the seasoning is in the right place, but please also be careful because, you know, these things got like bones and stuff in it and you might get struck by your bone. So be mindful if you're just using your bare hands to mix the seasoning together. And now I'm just going to get ready to fry, and here is the interesting bit, okay? To infuse the oil and make everything taste super nice, I'm going to be adding in some ginger, some rosemary into the oil. This will give it a nice fragrance and a nice taste to your seafood as well. And I'm also adding in some spring onion and some Scotch bonnet. I have loads of spring onions and rosemary in the garden, so I'm just using it, okay? And I'm also adding in some thyme as well because I've got lots in the garden. And then I'm going to be frying my prawns first. It doesn't take long for these prawns to be fried at all. You can see that immediately they hit the oil, it starts to change color, okay? So once it's nice and pink, you know that your prawns are ready to go. So do not over fry them. It's just going to be tough and not very enjoyable to eat. You see, it's just hit the oil and already it is turning pink. So it just needs about 5 minutes and it is good to go. So after about 5 minutes, I can see that my prawns are good to go. So I'm just going to be removing this out of the oil and then I will continue frying the other seafood as well. So I'm going to be adding some fresh rosemary again and a little bit of ginger again just to give it more freshness into the next batch that I'm going to fry, which is the salmon. It doesn't take too long to fry the salmon as well. As you know, seafood generally don't take too long to fry, so I won't be keeping this too long in the oil. However, I do want them to be nice and crispy, and I'm not going to be stirring it around in the oil. I'm just going to leave it alone and then allow this to fry. But immediately I put it in, I'm just going to give it a quick mix to ensure that they are not overlapping so they can fry nice and crunchy. So after about 5 to 7 minutes, I can see that my salmon is nice and golden and it's almost time to come out of the oil. Can you see how lovely they are looking? And this is how I like my salmon. So I am just going to be removing this out of the oil and then we can proceed to the next step. So the herbs have served their purpose. I'm just going to be removing this. However, I will add in some new ones, but I will remove the old ones. And now I am going to be frying my anchovies. Now, with this, they are very delicate, okay? If you put them in the oil and you vigorously stir them or you stir them too much, it's just going to dissolve in the oil and you won't find anything, okay? Because it's really kind of soft. So what you need to do is once you put them in the oil, you give them a gentle stir just to make sure that everything is in single layers, and then you have to leave it alone just to, you know, make sure you're not flatten them or anything. I don't know if that makes sense, but just leave it alone and let it fry for a good 10-12 minutes, okay? And it splatters a lot, so I had to also use a splatter guard because I'm not trying to burn myself out here. So if you have that, great, please use it because it will splatter. And as you can see, it is looking nice, golden, very crunchy, just the way I like it. So I'm just going to be removing this out of the oil, and then finally we are going to be frying the red fish. I'm going to be adding in some rosemary, you already know, and some spring onions as well, just to give it more freshness. Okay, you already know the deal. And then with this one, I am going to be adding in some plain flour, just a little handful plain flour. This is going to ensure that your fish is not going to fall apart, or it's not going to stick to the bottom of the pan, and it's not going to break. Okay, so this is the trick. Just sprinkle a little bit of all-purpose flour into the oil before you add in your red fish, to ensure that your red fish stays nice and intact, and it's going to come out nice and crunchy. Okay, pro tip, don't forget to do that. Okay, and like I say, do not stir too much, just give it a nice shake. I let this fry for about 7 minutes. It's looking golden, but I like mine slightly on the crunchy side, so I'm going to allow this to fry just a little while for it to get a little bit crunchier. Then I will take this out of the oil. So after another 5 minutes, this is how I like my fish. So I'm going to take this out. Look at how lovely that is looking. It is still intact. It's nice and crunchy. It's flavorful. And that is because we used that all-purpose flour before we started frying it. Okay, so if you don't want your fishes to fall apart, all-purpose flour is your friend. And then yes, this is it. We are all done. I hope that I inspired you to fry your fishes, or you picked 1 or 2 hints and tips to fry the perfect seafood. Here we are. I am of course going to pair mine with some kinky, some shito, some green chili. So good. If you enjoyed this video so far, please give me a thumbs up, like the video. It really helps this video go far, and it also helps my channel, so please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead and do subscribe. Please invite your friends to also subscribe to my channel. Comment below, let me know what you think, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.